Okay? All right, great.
Okay.
Do you have any more?
Thank you again to everybody who is here tonight, as well as those of you who are live streaming in. I wanted to introduce Terry Brown. He's our Assistant Dean for GME here at Rowan SOM. I know many of you know him. As I mentioned before, he'll be presenting the first part of our workshop. I wanted to mention, for those of you who are live streaming the workshop, you will have the opportunity to ask questions at the end. Of course, all of you sitting here as well. So I wanted to mention that before Terry got started. All right.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'm going to run through these slides pretty quickly, but feel free to raise your hand if you have a question midstream. We're fine. And then we'll get you guys to your individual counseling sessions. We just wanted to talk to you a little bit about what to consider when you're putting your rank order list together. I know people get really nervous this time of the year. We have some horror stories about people changing their rank order list at the last minute, and we don't want you guys to do that. So anyway, things to consider when you're assessing your program. I think you probably already all know this, but sometimes it's good to hear it a second time or from a different voice. Obviously quality, reputation, and the faculty. You want to take a look at that and make sure that they're going to fit what you think would be your ideal program. Some folks really want to put their priority on the academics, and some of you really want to be on the floors and in the OR and, hey, academics, I like to read and I'll do that on my own time. So that's something you got to try to assess. I think you really get your best answer on those issues when you're talking to residents that are in the program. Some of you are going to look for that balance. So despite what you might hear from programs, I think you really should talk to the residents because you'll get a better sense of what goes on. And again, that's really going to be up to you. Am I a on the floor in the OR person, or am I somebody who likes a little bit of both, or am I somebody who really likes the didactics? And you should make your decisions based off of that. Research opportunities as we move into the ACGME world. This is going to become a bigger and bigger piece of all residencies, both DO and there's an increase on the MD side. For those of you that are considering, I want to do a DO program, but I might want to go into an ACGME fellowship, you should really be talking to the DO program about how much of an opportunity you have to do research there, because that will help you get into those fellowships. And again, I think you're going to see a big increase on both sides of the aisle on that. Fellowship placement is the other piece. I always tell people, and I'm sure I told you guys last year, that if you are sure you want to do a fellowship, then I would be ranking my programs in that order: fellowships, places that have the fellowship there first, and then places that you don't have the fellowship, but you'd be comfortable going there and know that you have to apply out to fellowships later. I always recommend the go for the fellowship in-house route, because if you just even look at our programs, it's over 85% of our residents are in our fellowships. The attendings get to know you, they want to keep you, so you have a much better chance. Plus you have 3 years to say, hey, I'm here and I want this spot. So it's your opportunity to prove that you'd be a good team member there. And then the other thing you want to talk to is, when you talk to the residents, are they happy? They're always going to put the cheerleader in front of you, so if you can get to know more than one resident, I think that's always a good idea, so you can get a real sense of what's going on in a program. And then, do they get along, do the residents get along with the nurses? Do the residents get along with the ambulatory clinic folks? So that's a big part of it too. So how do you fit into all that? And then the facilities, do they have a gym? Is the cafeteria food good? Is there good parking? Is it close by? Is it well lit? Things that you might or might not think are important, but for some people they are. And then the last thing is you want to talk to programs. What is their status? Where are you in this long journey to get ACGME accreditation? As of 2 weeks ago, 62% of the DO programs had applied or submitted their application, which is right about where it should be because of the process that's set up. Every 5-year program had to be in by now, every 4-year program had to be in by now, and every 3-year program had to be in by now, or they weren't allowed to recruit. And then, I don't know the percentage of how many got through to initial accreditation and how many are still in pre-accreditation and are still working on those, but they are a work in progress. We have 2 of our programs that are already initially accredited, and then we have 5 that are working through citations, which are the ACGME's way of coming back and saying, hey, you're not doing this, this, and this. How are you going to address this in the future? So you should be asking your programs that. Additional things, for a lot of people, it's location, location, location. You want to know if you've got a good support system in place, especially, some of you are married, some of you are thinking about starting a family during residency, and if you think life's tough now, where do you have a family and you're trying to do all this? So in those situations, it's good to have family close by. Having 2 kids and having my mom and dad involved while I worked here, was invaluable. So it's something that you might or might not want to consider. But some people, you want to take that into consideration. Housing and salary. You go up in New York, you got to look at those salaries, and you got to think about where you're going to live, what your commute's going to be like. And I'm sure that a lot of you have already thought that through, but different parts of the country can be pretty expensive to live in. Employment opportunities. Some of you might want to say, hey, this is where I'm doing my residency. This is actually where I want to work. You want to have that conversation with the residency, even before you go into the match. It's not inappropriate to be asking those questions even this late in the game if you think that's important to you. And then, the last part of this is a really good fit for me? And I'm sure you've already done that and have your list together, and if you don't, you should have those together by now. And then, sometimes you have to take a step back and really look at yourself and say, hey, am I a good fit for this program? Will I fit in? Do I share the same interests that what I've heard while I was there? And then the biggie for me would be, do I like the program director? You probably met them in interviews, but in some situations you may not have. If they were interviewing a ton of people, sometimes they do it in teams. If you didn't and you have an opportunity to talk to the program director either in person or via email just to get a sense of who they are and what their values are, it's always a good idea. It's one thing to go to a program and get along with all the residents. It's another to go to a program, get along with all the residents, and the program director is not a nice person. So you want to be sure that you can get along with them. Things not to consider, whether or not you think they liked you. I can't tell you how many times we have people say to us, oh, I had a great interview and they were so nice to me and I put them at the top of my list and I didn't match. Typically we hear that conversation when somebody says, I interviewed at 15 places and I only put 1 on my list because that one was so nice to me, and then they don't match. So that should not be a consideration. You should be really doing it by academics, research, those types of things, how they fit with you, how they fit with your plans. Again, the positive feedback they gave you after an interview, I'm going to talk a little bit more about that a little bit later in this, but I can't tell you how many people get caught up with that. So what you need to know is typically a PD and or the chief residents aren't mean to you. They typically give you good feedback. So, and they're giving everybody good feedback unless they really don't want that person in their program. So don't be fooled by that. They're giving everybody positive feedback for the most part. What they led you to believe about your rank, they shouldn't be leading you too far along. I can't tell you how many people have come in and said, oh, they told me they were going to rank me, they're going to rank me. Yeah, sure, they ranked you. You're on their list. You just weren't at the point where you were going to match. So don't, again, fall for that and shorten your list because I know I'm going to one of my top 2 or 3. We do have people that go down their lists. I know I talked to you guys last year about the EM 690, 23 programs. She got her 23rd spot. Good thing she put that 23rd rank down. Otherwise, she wouldn't have got EM. So those are things to consider. Bottom line, rank in order of your preference. Rank any and all programs unless you know for a fact you don't want to go there. There's no way you want to live there. Otherwise, you rank them. There's no way you want to be part of that team, no way you want to work with that program director. Then you don't rank them. Otherwise, if you went, you interviewed, and you think you can be happy there and get a good education and help your career move forward, rank the program. Unless you would rather be in a scramble than be at that program. Not big on scrambling. If your thoughts are, if I can't get this emergency medicine program or I can't get this IM program, I'm going to scramble. Scramble. If you think this is stressful, wait till scramble week. And wait till you see how hard it is just to even get somebody on the phone to talk to you. It's not easy. Typically, the spots that are open in the scramble are traditional rotating, family medicine, and IM. Each year, that number seems to shrink a little bit as far as IM and as far as family medicine. So, again, I don't think you want to be scrambling if you don't have to. There's no secret. You can't outwit the match. It's all done by computers. The algorithms are set up so that you're going to match at your top spot as long as they want you. Every year, not in the last couple, because maybe I give this part of the talk as somebody comes in and say, I figured out a way to beat the match. You can't beat the match. Just put it in. No student with a lower number on a program's rank list can take your spot. So if you rank your programs 1 to 10, and the 10th position or program has you at the top of their list and you don't get your first 9, you're going there. It doesn't matter if somebody else put your 10th spot number 1. That's part of how that algorithm works. So don't overthink this. Somebody's going to overthink it. Don't. So that's the example that I just gave you. So there's no disadvantage to ranking your REACH program number 1. I actually highly recommend it. Because if your number 2 program still has you high on their rank order list, if you don't get your REACH, you're getting your number 2. So that's important to know. If you think you have a REACH, put them at the top of your list. We talked about the being, aware of the feedback from programs. No program director should be asking you where you're ranking them. That's a match violation. If they do and they get reported, they can be banned from participating in the match in the future. You're allowed to tell. They're allowed to tell. But you're not allowed to ask, and they're not allowed to ask. So just be aware of that. If you get a phone call or an email, don't assume that you're in. A lot of programs, or a decent number of programs, are still trying to figure out people. They want to talk to them one more time, so they might call you. They liked you. They weren't sure if you had any other questions. So don't be surprised if you get a call from somebody. Don't shorten your rank order list because you got a call from somebody. Again, you list everybody because you never know. So in 2014, the Association of Program Directors of Internal Medicine published this information, and they said that 20% of the students in their study felt assured that they would match into the program they ranked first, and they didn't. I actually think that's a little high. I think it's probably a lower number. So that's why I'm saying don't feel that you're so assured to be in a program that you should, eliminate people from your rank order list. So we've talked about that. I think I kind of covered this too. Kind of pounded this home with slides, I'm sorry, but I think you get the idea here. Thank you, Dr. Scott. So again, as we say to you guys all the time, scrambling is not a strategy. It's not your backup plan. Your backup plan should be another specialty area that you're interested in. You should have your REACH programs. You should have your REACH specialty, but you should have a specialty where historically we know based on past matches, you'll have a real good opportunity to match into. We worry about this scrambling. Some people, despite how many times we say, try not to do this, they do it anyway. So it's a mess. Remember that the match is a binding contract. So if there is one program where, the program director was a three-headed dragon and the nurses and the residents didn't get along, don't put them on your list. Because, if you put them on your list, if you rank them, you will go. So we do run into that occasionally, and there's no way out. With the ACGME, it'll become even tougher because they will put you on a blackball list for up to 3 years, meaning you can't go into any other programs. So it could affect you with a fellowship because they could go as many as 4 or 5 years, depending on how bad the breach is. So be careful with that. If you match, you're going. Pack your bags. You're going, unless you want to step out of medicine completely. So here are some of the match service rules. They can only take folks through the match. After the match on the AOA side, there is the scramble period, which is you get a list of programs, you call them, and you can do those types of contract negotiations. That usually is a pretty swift process. Programs probably won't give you more than 24 hours to give an answer if you find yourself in that position. Programs can't demand to know how they'll be ranked. We talked about that. And again, you're bound by the results of the match. Second looks, I know it's getting late, but some programs will allow you to do a second look. It's okay. Just don't go unannounced, because you can get yourself in trouble, not only at the hospital that you walked into unannounced, but also at the school, because we don't know you're there. So if you're going to do a second look, make sure that you get approval from Dr. Scott's office, and then go. We offer second looks in some of our programs. Some people take us up on it, some people don't. I think it serves really two purposes. It allows you to get a better feel for the program, but it really says to that program, hey, this is where I want to be. Because you're not going back for a second look for a program you're not really that interested in. So if you have that opportunity in the next couple of weeks, do it. Your list is due next Friday. The program lists are due the following Friday, the 26th. You have a couple of weeks if you can go for a day or two. Again, make sure you get approval through Dr. Scott. All right, so I always say don't wait till last minute. I would say to you that you're due next Friday. On Saturday morning, I'd get up and I'd put my rank order list in, and I'd be done with it. I don't know how much more is going to change in the next 5 days after that or 6 days after that. I don't know why your list would change dramatically in that time frame. Just get your list in. I think I talked to you guys about the SOM student who changed his list on the last Friday, realized what a huge mistake he made, especially after his significant other came in and told him what a huge mistake he made. And when he wanted to go back on, he couldn't get in, and by the time he did get in, it was after midnight, and they wouldn't allow it. And even with a phone call on Monday, they said no. So instead of being an ENT, he was a traditional rotator in Virginia. So do it, walk away, don't think twice about it. I'd do it Saturday. Do it Saturday, and then if you do it in the morning, then you have the whole afternoon to watch football. Right? Go Eagles. So we're all going to break out. These are a list of the folks that will be here today to help you guys. I know I have a bunch of you coming to talk to me, but before we sit down individually, are there any questions? I mean, I think this is pretty basic. I don't think there's a rocket science here. If there is, somebody will have to point it out to me.
I just wanted to add something really quickly. When Terry was talking about not letting programs' feedback influence your decisions in terms of what your rank order list looks like, I wanted to share a really quick story with you of something that happened with one of our fourth years last year in terms of feedback she was getting from a residency program. This particular student was a great applicant, very competitive. In the 1 week leading up to the day when rank order lists were due, she was contacted by the residency program 3 times. The first 2 times, one was from the program director and the other was from a chief resident. And essentially were the same conversation, talking about how they had ranked her very highly. They wanted her, high enough to match there. They wanted her to come there. Did she have any questions? They hoped that she was ranking them highly. Did she have any concerns or doubts? Kind of along those lines. The third phone call was from the program director again, giving her the name and contact information for one of their residents who was going to have an open room in their apartment the following year and was looking for someone to sign a lease, essentially looking to fill the room. And because they had hoped that, I guess she had shared with the program that they were in fact her number 1 choice. So because they were obviously ranking her very highly and they knew, they were her number 1, they wanted, he didn't want her to have any doubts about, I'm even going as far as to help you find housing so you can come to this program and not have any hesitation. She did not match there. So I just want to kind of reemphasize what Terry's saying about don't let the feedback or things that you're getting from the program influence where they go on your rank order list. rank based on your true preference. That student opened her envelope on match day, and I'll never forget her facial expression because she was shocked. Clear match violations, but again, I think she sort of allowed that feedback to influence where that program ended up on her rank order list, and she was really disappointed on match day. So not to increase your already high stress levels, but I just thought it was important to share that with you because these things happen, unfortunately. They shouldn't, but they do. So if anyone here, but also on the live stream, has questions, if you're here, feel free to raise your hand. If you're on the live stream, there is a chat feature. Feel free to type them, and we'll get those answered for you. So does anybody have a question?
It's also a good time, if you haven't done it, to send an email to your top program and say, hey, I've completed all my interviews. I was very impressed with your program. I'm ranking you at the top of my list. Thank you again for allowing me to interview with your program. You've hammered home that this is where I want to be. And believe me, programs love that, because then they go back and look at their list and they say, oh, you know what, maybe I should move this person up. They really want to be here. I like them. And there is some very last minute small adjustments. People that send those letters move up, and that means somebody might have moved down, and you don't want to be that person. So I always say, towards the end here, send them a note, especially to your number one program. Probably only to your number one program. This is where I want to be. They're not sharing those notes with anybody. They're not sharing those notes with other programs, so nobody's going to know that the number two program's not going to know that you sent a note to somebody saying, hey, thank you again for the interview. I'm excited about the opportunity to possibly work in your program. Something along those lines. And don't expect a response back. You may get one, but don't expect it. But it's good to hammer home that that's where you want to be. Any questions? No? Okay, good. Yes? Mm-hmm.
So say I'm applying anesthesia to advanced program, but I have but I also am here for the TRI. How would I rank that just for the advanced program?
Well, if you have categorical programs, you can't, because you'll get kicked out of that because you've matched into your first year here. So you can't. You've got to wait, and if we have openings, you'll scramble into that after the SOAP. Now, typically we have traditional rotating spots available, and we will hold them for after the SOAP. I'm not allowed to talk to you during the SOAP, before the SOAP, anywhere along those lines. So you can't come into my office. But typically we will hold a handful of positions, and we're looking for candidates just like you. I wanted to get an advanced standing in anesthesia. I got it. Now I need a first year. Now, will I have a spot for every SOM student? I don't know. If there's 25 people that get advanced standing and come into my office, I'm not going to have 25 spots. So it's really comes down to a first serve, first person in our door as soon as the SOAP ends. Then we start talking to people and looking at their application and making decisions. So, yeah, I mean, that's, yeah. Yeah, and you don't want to do that. So right, exactly. Don't take those off the table. You want to keep them on the table. Yeah, it's
And
difficult.
when Terry says first come, first served, like you want to be at his office on noon on Thursday, because if my memory serves me correctly, you filled all those TRI spots within 24 hours last year.
Yes. Yeah, we fill them quick. Yeah. Everybody does. They go fast. So, okay. And I think last year we kept maybe 6 or 7 spots open. So, again, I don't know the makeup of your class as far as the advanced standing, so I can't promise anything, but yeah. Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And listen, some people are literally at my door, and we're fine with that. And then, yeah, and we'll be fine with that. We'll go from there. Yes. Right. So on Monday, the way it works, and Dr. Boyd, I'll ask you to correct me if I'm wrong. On Monday, the students find out that you matched. And if you matched into an advanced standing position, you're told you still need a PGY1. So that way you can enter into the SOAP with the ACGME, that process. So Monday, you know. Fridays when you find out, Friday at noon, is when they actually open their envelope and find out where you're going. So Monday, you already know, I'm done, I don't have to do anything, or I have to jump into the SOAP and try to find a first-year prelim spot, or after the SOAP's over, I need to go back to the DO programs and see if they have first-year prelim spots. So I would recommend that if on Monday you find out you need a first year, you look and see what prelim, transitional, or prelim spots that will fit your specialty's needs are open, and get involved in the SOAP, right? Because as you just heard me say, I'll have some openings, but I don't know what the makeup of the class is or what the match will look like, so I may or may not have enough for everybody. We did last year, but I can't promise that. So then we're going to be this first come, first serve, you know. I mean, if you want to come in or shoot me an email and say, hey, I might be one of those people, I'll put you on a list. I actually have somebody on the list already. So I already know that I might have somebody at my door. So I've already looked at their application to get a sense of whether or not we would offer them a position. So, you know, that's kind of how we play this. But once the match goes down, I can't talk to you anymore until after the SOAP's over. So, you know, it's kind of like a fine line, but that's how it'll play out. Okay? I will be, yeah, yep, and we will certainly look at it and be ready to, right. Yeah, please keep my name and, you know, on your list, and, you know, I'll want to be taken into consideration for that. Mm-hmm. Any more questions? Who's not nervous? I'm nervous. It's the worst time of the year for all of us. So, okay. Great.